Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. In this video, I'm going to go through the latest upgrade we did to the Cosman Workbench. This, I think, is maybe the most useful we've done. Combination of doors and drawers on the bottom side. I'm going to show you all the details on how we built it, give you the dimensions, so if you want to build it, you can do it yourself. Stick with me. All right, this is the Cosman Workbench. I'm going to give you a brief introduction in case you're not familiar with it. I designed this back in 2011, I think, and the idea was, could we come up with a bench design that would allow a new woodworker that had minimal tools, minimal skill, and didn't break the bank. We built it using materials you can buy at a big box store. So the main bench itself has a top. It's made out of MDF, which I might add is now water-resistant MDF. You can use 3/4 sheets, but I actually like to use the 1-inch sheets, glued together to give you a nice solid 3-inch thick top that's stable and flat. The base, or the trestle, and the stretchers are made out of Baltic birch. And this is 4 layers of Baltic birch glued together, just with a staple gun and glue, built kind of like Lego in pieces, makes it really easy to do. Now, I did this one a little bit different. I actually used some Douglas fir for the stretchers, whereas normally they would have used Baltic birch. We've gone through over the last several years, and we've made a lot of additions to it. The one I want to focus on today is this bottom section. And this actually, as a unit, this whole thing slides out if you want to have that space underneath, or you can make it so that it's a permanent part of the bench design. But if you get your pen and pencil out, or pencil and paper out, I'll give you some dimensions, show you the features of it, show you what we've done that maybe is a little bit innovative. Either way, it's a great way to store tools that you want at your fingertips and from either side of the bench. I'll show you. What I did on the base, I built the framework out of Baltic birch, but I used some pine and solid Douglas fir, and only because a lot of the shop furniture that I have uses a combination of Douglas fir and pine. But you could use any materials you want. I like the fact that the Baltic birch is I think it's probably the best quality plywood that you can get. No voids to deal with and dimensionally stable. And when you clean up the edges, it looks good. Okay, the bench top itself is 60 inches, excluding the jaw on the vise. The width is 20 inches. And of course, the top is 3 inches thick because it uses 3 1-inch pieces. The base, the overall length, is 40.5 inches. The height to the top of the bench is 34 3/4. Now, that's something that you may want to personalize. The width of the base is 16 7/8. The foot down here, and you want that to be relatively wide because of stability, is 23 3/4. It's the same height from here, or same width on the base is the same width down here at the bottom as it is at the top, so straight design here. Now the opening that I had to deal with is 36 1/4 inches in length, and the width is 15 inches. The depth is, I'm going to have to guess on this one, somewhere around 14.5, and I say guess because I'm in, well, actually I can give you the exact dimension because that's in an inch. So if we take 16 3/4 and take off 2 inches, we're 14 3/4 wide. So when I built this unit, I simply put 2 cleats on the underside to keep it from being pushed out, but it's not fastened in any way. So this unit is one separate piece that you can easily remove. And why would you want to remove it? Well, sometimes it's nice to be able to use the bench top as a big caul when you're clamping something, and you want to be able to access your clamps, and you might need to give them right down into here, but at least on this one you can get access to pretty much all the way around the perimeter of the bench, but if you had to get in there deep, you'd have to remove this. As far as the openings for the drawers, that is 11 1/4. The door opening is 11 1/4, so that's three identical dimensions. top to bottom for drawers, we have 13 3/4, same thing for the door. The actual drawers themselves have the dividers in the middle. Now I used 5/8 Baltic birch for the outside frame. So top piece, bottom piece, 2 end pieces, and these 2 central dividers. The dividers in between the drawers, I didn't need that much material. So this is actually half inch. Now the thing you need to know about Baltic birch is all done in metric. So 5/8 is actually closer to 9/16, and ½ inch is actually closer to 7/16. Now, as far as the drawers go, and this is one of the unique features, I wanted this so that I could be able to get at it from either side. So you can open that drawer up from either side, and what I did to keep it from pushing all the way through is I put a magnet right in the middle, and I put a corresponding magnet, you got to make sure you get your poles right, in the middle of the cabinet. So when you close this, you'll find that spot where it stops because the magnet holds it right there, which is really convenient, as I say, depending on which side of the bench you're on, you have access to from either way. On this one, I have a door on both sides. Now, I haven't put any shelves in here yet. Haven't completely decided how I want to do that, whether I just want the capacity to put something that's fairly large in there, or whether I want to actually use shelves. I think I'll probably just leave it like this and just use it for storing something that I can't get into the drawers. Okay, so as far as the construction of the cabinet itself, I dovetailed it, obviously on all 4 corners, you can see. Nice thing about Baltic birch, because it's essentially solid wood, it just happens to be layers that are going in opposite directions. There are no voids in it. You can easily cut it and treat it just like it would be solid wood. So dovetails on all 4 corners. And now you've got 2 other main joints, and that is these 2 central dividers, these vertical dividers. And they sit inside of what's called a stop dado. So a dado is a groove that you cut across the grain, typically. I say typically because in plywood it's not quite the same, but you're cutting across the grain, or across its width. You stop shy so that you can put a little notch on both ends. When you set this into place, instead of having that sitting down into an open groove, it stopped and you got a nice clean joint right here. Now you'll also notice that I purposely set this back and then I set these back. If you try to line these up perfectly, it's very difficult, number 1. Number 2, when it comes to cleaning it up, you're having to cross the grain with your plane. That's difficult as well. But if you purposely have it set in, it has to be enough so that it looks like it was intentional. If it's not enough, it almost looks like a miss. So it's probably a 1/16 of an inch set in there. Actually, it's a little more than that, probably closer to an 1/8 of an inch. And then these are the same. Now these, same concept, sitting in stopped dados on both sides. And the gluing is such with plywood that you get a good strong joint. You don't need to reinforce it with anything else. And there's enough joinery in here, if you consider all of these pieces, that you don't need to worry about any other reinforcing. Just the glue in the joint alone is more than adequate to keep everything nice and stable. And you have to be really careful with your dimensions so that when you are done, after you've cleaned up the corners, that's going to fit in there. I didn't want it to be sloppy at all, so it's relatively tight, particularly end to end. There's probably there's a business card maybe that you could slip in there top to bottom, but certainly not on the ends. It goes in nice and smooth and doesn't wiggle around. Hey, if you like this video, we have more. Our monthly newsletter has subscriber-only content, discounts monthly on tools, and anything we bring out that's new, subscribers get first crack at it. Click on the link below. Let's get back to work. Now, you could change this, do anything you want in terms of the dimensions. I just figured with 3 equal size spaces, it just worked out nice. And I based that on the size of the door. I just think that the proportions were nice. It wasn't too wide, wasn't too narrow, wide enough to be useful. And I didn't want more than 1 door, or 1 big open cabinet. So this is what I like. But like I said, you can do that whatever you want. Now, I'll just show you what we did on the doors. So this is a mitered joint, and we make a special mitered shooting board, which allows you to get a really nice tight miter that's just bang on. To reinforce it, I use Douglas fir splines. So these are saw cuts that are made after the joint is glued up. It's sufficiently strong enough to hold it together. You run that over the table saw, and you're using a rip blade so that you get a nice flat bottom kerf. And you run that over with the blade set whatever distance you want to be from the fence. So you make one pass, turn it over, and make the opposite pass, and that gives you 2 equal spaces. And I like the fact that the double joint, I think, is a whole lot stronger, not just because you have 2 joints, but it changes the geometry of the joint and makes it really strong. Of course, you want the grain running this way so it resists breaking, which would be the weakest part of the joint. It would be to break like that as opposed to any other way. And I've got 2, obviously, on all 4 corners. The outside frame is pine. The inside panel is Douglas fir to match the drawers. And I'm using European style hard hinges so that it's really easy. You can just clip them in place, and you've got the opportunity to go in there and adjust them just about every way you can imagine, so you get it to fit just perfect. I think I gave you the dimensions on these, but I'll give you the actual frame and style. These pieces, because they're mitered, they're all the same. So it's a 2-inch frame, 2-inch stiles, 2-inch rails, and that panel is sitting in there about in a groove about 1/4 of an inch. Now, what I did with that, rather than try to get your panel, I'll take this out again, rather than try to get your panel so that it's just the right thickness in order to fit in the groove without being sloppy, I leave one side like this, and then I cut a rabbet on the opposite side. And you can go in, and regardless of whether or not your panel is a little thinner or thicker on one side than the other, because I hand planed this, you can go in and cut your rabbet so that it fits into that groove perfectly, and you don't have to worry about that side-to-side slop. And it gives you a nice clean look, or you could make it, maybe that's the side you want. You'll also notice that my finger pull, I don't like hardware per se. I much rather integrate it right into the design of the cabinet. So I simply cut a 1-inch radius circle. In the center is a little farther in, so there's a little bit of a flat spot there. But you can easily get your finger in, and I just round over the inside so that it's comfortable on the fingers. Now, we'll save the best for the last, and we'll talk about the drawers. All right, let's take this drawer out and have a closer look at it. First of all, if you look in here, you'll see where our magnet is positioned, and you have to plan for that before you put it together. And it's sitting in a cup because that really strengthens the magnet. And you want to make sure that it's just below the surface so that it doesn't interfere with the drawer, but you want it to be close enough to the surface that you get maximum pull from the magnet. I sand and wax the inside so that it'll rub, or it'll move nice and smoothly. And I probably am not quite as careful with building these drawers as I would with a piece of furniture, but they do have a pretty close fit. Now, it takes away a little bit from the traditional drawer construction if you followed us on how we build drawers. Typically, you would use your back out of a secondary wood, and you would get that to fit the opening just right, and then you would use that as a pattern to cut your front. Well, in this case, I don't have a back, I've got 2 fronts. So I had to be really careful with both of them. I used Douglas fir, as I mentioned, and pine on the sides. I only did 2 tails. If I was going to do something different, I might have taken the time to go in and do a 3rd tail. And that's just a matter of what I think looks best. That's just a little bit big, although it's perfectly fine, but I probably would have been satisfied even more so if I'd have gone 3 tails. Now, the drawer is 11 5/16 wide. Front to back is just under 14 inches. I like to have nice thin drawer sides. The advantage of using a dovetail in all 4 corners is it allows for a very strong drawer, even though your drawer sides are relatively thin, which serves to not only makes it look more pleasing, but it also lightens it up. The drawer side is 3/8 of an inch in thickness. The drawer front is 5/8 of an inch in thickness. And I do that purposely because I want to lengthen that pin, those tails, and I just think it looks a little bit better instead of having them short and stubby. The bottom is a piece of 5/8 Baltic birch. I don't think you need anything more than that. And of course, it has to be captured on 4, all the way around, on 4 surfaces. So I've got a dado cut in all 4 pieces. That means that when you're building it, a traditional drawer, you'd add the bottom last. In this case, you actually have to put your bottom in just before you put your second side on. So in drawer construction, if we put this corner together first, remember dovetails only go together one way, it's got to come like this. So we assemble this corner, and then we assemble this corner. Now we have a big U, then you've got to fit your drawer bottom, and you've got to make sure that it fits. You can't have it too long or else you won't be able to close your joint. And I've had that happen before, so you be very careful. And then the final is you're bringing this side, and these two corners are coming together or being assembled at the same time. Don't forget to do your little thumb radiuses on the inside before you put the joint together. It's very difficult to get a router in there otherwise. And as far as the fitting goes, you've got to allow for seasonal movement up and down. The wood's going to shrink and swell seasonally. But as far as side to side, you try to never have any detectable side to side movement. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed in that some of the pine didn't stand out like I would like. You'll notice that the contrast between the end grain of the pine and the face of the redwood, or the Douglas fir, is a lot more pronounced in this one than is in some of these others. In fact, this one's probably going to disappear. As that darkens down, you won't even be able to tell. So if I was going to do it again, I probably would have used poplar on those sides just because it's whiter and it would give you a little more contrast. And I'm not so sure that I would have, if I was doing it again, that I would use pine on the frame. That kind of got lost. I think it might have been better if that whole thing was Douglas fir. There was a little too much contrast compared to what you're getting over here in the drawers. So, make it fit your bench. Get the most out of your bench. Good luck. Enjoy it. If you like my work and enjoy my style of teaching, click on any one of these videos and help take your woodworking to the next level. I've always said, better tools make the job so much easier. If you click on the link below, the chisel and plane icon, it'll take you to our site and introduce you to all the tools that we actually manufacture right here in our shop. It'll also give you information on our online and in-person workshops.